Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and you may have noticed for the past few weeks, I have been diligently walking a Grumpig. Well, today, at long last, I finally finished the last few XLs that I needed and spent over 500,000 Stardust to max out my rank 7 Ultra League Grumpig. Grumpig, I think, is a bit of an interesting Pokemon, as it has an ability to core break a lot of the most common cores in the Ultra League that pair with Lapras. So today, I'm going to be testing it out to see how I feel it performs, with a Galarian Weezing lead and my own Lapras as a safe switch. Hopping into the first match, we're leading Weezing into an opposing Lapras, so this is honestly not where I want to see this Pokemon. I'm going to farm up quite a bit of energy, safe switch into my Lapras, and my opponent is going to respond with Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is going to go for the crunch. We do not see a defense drop, so a bit of good luck does go my way. Sparkling Aria is going to connect. That's some pretty solid damage. Farming up with the Lapras, and I mistimed the move. I tried to throw it one turn before they got the move, but unfortunately, I feel like the visuals of opposing fast moves are often one turn delayed as of late, and that can cause timing errors like in that situation there. But my opponent does give me switch advantage. They're going for massive farm on Lapras, but I have a Pokemon in the back that does a great job at shutting down Lapras. Grumpig hits the field. Grumpig, more than happy to absorb multiple Sparkling Arias. Look at that damage. Grumpig completely unfazed. Lapras is going to be firing off another Sparkling Aria. Part of why Grumpig does so well here is it's a Psy Wave resist. So the Lapras has very little fast move pressure. I will shield up the third just to keep a little bit of health. In the back is Talonflame. And this honestly feels like a very winnable game. Shadow Ball is going to be shielded. There's the switch back into the Galarian Weezing. And the reason why I think it's winnable is all the energy I stored on Weezing from earlier. Sludge is going to connect. Next Sludge will not knock out, but it will put them in a range where I can Psy-Wave down with the Grumpig. Opponent does not like the sound of that. They will commit the shield. They're farming up to 100 energy, but that will allow me to make it to another Sludge. This Sludge is going to get the Talonflame very, very low. Talonflame is able to hang on and fire off this fly. That will KO the Weezing. In comes the Grumpig, and now it's going to be a race. Grumpig versus Lapras. Their clock's up. They're going to be switching. Can they get the Aria before we get Dynamic Punch? No, they cannot. Grumpig putting in work here. Dynamic Punch KOs the Lapras, Psy-Waving down the Talonflame, and we take a Game 1 win. Galarian Weezing into Golisopod in the next match. Now, Galarian Weezing, of course, does have a slight pacing advantage here, as Sludge is 5-4-5-4, whereas for Golisopod, it's straight 5 to Aqua Jet. So, I will be able to outpace her if I want to, but it looks like a second Sludge will barely not knock out, so I have a different idea. I'm going to catch the Aqua Jet onto the Lapras. This way I can check and see if there's any potential problem Pokemon for Psy-Wavers in the back, and it's actually a Cobalion that hits the field. Cobalion, not a great matchup for the Lapras. Lapras is able to consistently chip away with neutral damage, but Cobalion has very good stats and a good typing, so Lapras definitely not a matchup that's in its favor. Cobalion going to be hit with another Sparkling Aria. I really don't want to concede a farm down. I think I may be able to snipe here with a Fairy Wind, so I try for it, but they live on 1 HP. No, the snipe fails. We lose our energy, and that's bad news for me, as in the back is Feraligatr, and I think I've just completely thrown this game by playing it the way that I've played it. If that snipe worked, then I would have been in a winning position, but it didn't. They lived on 1 HP, and Feraligatr wins the 2 shield against Grumpig. The issue is they'll get to the third Hydro Cannon before I get the third Dynamic Punch. In this moment, I feel like going for the catch onto Lapras is too obvious. My opponent is probably going to watch for that. So I'm actually just going to let them throw the move if they throw it instantly, but they bank the move. They switch into Golisopod, predicting that I go for the catch, and I get that call right. Dynamic Punch is going to KO. They still have the move. I farm up, I switch, and I get the catch. I was expecting they were going to pause for a little bit there to see if I swapped. I don't swap until the last second, and by getting the catch, we now get to Dynamic Punch, take the win. That's a game that we never should have won, but we're able to claw back and take victory. Weezing versus Weezing in the next match, and I'm going to farm up to a Play Rough and then look to switch out into the Lapras. Ideally, I would much rather have their Weezing on my Grumpig, so this is how I'm going to play this out. Opponent gonna send out a Kyurem Black. What is this thing doing here? A Kyurem Black in the Ultra League. As you can tell, these battles are past legends, so it's very clearly an opponent just having fun and running something that they built for the heck of it. Unfortunately for me, while Ultra League Kieran Black is not going to beat much, their Spice Pick has found its target as this thing outpaces Lapras, and these Fusion Bolts are going to hurt. So, unfortunately, I'm getting spiced on. I just have to let the Lapras go and send back in the Galarian Weezing. Sludge is going to KO Kieran Black. It's a lot glassier in the Ultra League compared to the Master League. They're going to send their final Pokemon. Oh my goodness, it's Lapras. And Grumpig is in a prime position here. Grumpig is going to be chipped now with a Sparkling Aria. And then my opponent is going to switch and send back in their Galarian Weezing. Weezing gonna be hit with a Shadow Ball. This will inflict some very solid damage, so we will see a shield come up from my opponent. They want to guaranteed land a charge attack, and that's what they're going to be able to do. Sludge is going to get the Grumpig very, very low. I will commit the shield because the switch clocks are misaligned here. So I can look to farm up, switch into the Weezing. I tried to snipe it, but unfortunately I lose the CMP tie. I should be able to still pick up the knockout here, but with a Dynamic Punch banked, I should just be in a winning position because I'm going to be able to fire off energy at this Lapras, and this will put it into Dynamic Punch range. My only worry is that my charge move may not show up. So I decided to commit to the Play Rough to guarantee the knockout. My opponent is going to throw, and now I get to fire off Dynamic Punch with Grumpig. So back in comes Grumpig. I'm firing off the Dynamic Punch here. Dynamic Punch into the Lapras. Lapras hangs on, and on 1 HP, they're going to take the win. And that's a completely thrown game by me. If I just threw double Sludge, Dynamic absolutely would have KO'd. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Greninja. Greninja would be a nightmare for the Psywavers in the back, so I'm very happy to catch this Pokemon here. They are going to land some pretty significant damage, and there is a very nice wait and a catch onto Drapion. They catch a Play Rough though, so that is still going to inflict some pretty solid damage. I'm going to remake some energy and send out Lapras. Lapras more than happy to absorb energy from the Drapion, but the fact that my opponent already has 2 Dark-type Pokemon does not inspire confidence because I have 2 Psywavers on my team. So they are going to go for another Crunch. They do actually get the defense drop there, and now I will go for the harder hitting Ice Beam. Ice Beam does do slightly more than Sparkling Aria. Ice Beam just does not pick up the knockout, and unfortunately, I'm just getting KO'd. I send back in the Weezing, desperately hoping that they're going to bring back in the Greninja here. I need them to, or I'm going to lose. And they bring back in the Greninja, so it appears they are core broken by the Weezing. Otherwise, they wouldn't switch this in. The Sludge is going to be shielded. My opponent can now just spam out Night Slashes, which is scary as they can fish for a potential 2-stage attack boost. And they get it! I jinxed myself. Oh no, this is not good. Sludge is going to be shielded. I continue the farm, but these Water Shurikens are adding up quite significantly. I'm going to shield and then look to make it to the Sludge. I go for the Sludge, and they catch onto a Giratina, but the good news for me is that they switched out of their boost, and now it's time for Grumpig. Grumpig, these Psywaves chunking the Giratina. Shadow Ball is going to hit for super effective damage. Shadow Sneak won't do a lot, but they're not running it. They're running Ancient Power on this Giratina. And that means, with Ancient Power and Dragon Claw, their charge moves only hit for neutral. Shadow Ball rocks the Giratina. One final charge attack reached, but I have the Dynamic Punch on this Grumpig, and they did not leave with a move on Greninja, so despite some fancy catches from my opponent, we're able to clutch out a win thanks to Grumpig. Hopping into the next match, we've got an incredibly cool lead from the opponent. I'm leading Galarian Weezing, and they're leading Shadow Blastoise. What an expensive investment. Oh my goodness. I built the regular Blastoise, and I swear that almost bankrupted me in terms of Stardust, but the Shadow is even pricier than that. I'm going to fire off a Sludge, throw one, switch, and make a catch onto the Lapras. This should just be a Hydro Cannon. They don't really have a reason to throw a Skull Bash at the Galarian Weezing. And now I'm going to farm up, and my opponent is going to send in Malamar. This is obviously a very poor matchup for the Lapras, but the goal here is to try and neutralize the Malamar to free up Grumpig in the back, so we're able to successfully bait out their Psywave resist. I fire off Sparkling Aria. That's never going to do a ton of damage, and I will go for Sparkling Aria number 2. My opponent does have to keep track of my energy here. They cannot afford to let me get a third, and that's very well done by them. They are not going to let me get that Sparkling Aria. So Foul Play is going to connect. I will get knocked out, but now I get to send in Galarian Weezing, and Galarian Weezing is going to get a nice amount of energy farming down this Malamar. Foul Play not going to do much. That's a huge farm down for the Galarian Weezing. In comes the Blastoise. I fire off the Sludge instantly because I know they banked a ton of energy. Sludge is going to be shielded, and it is going to be a CMP tie. I'm shielding up the Weezing. I have a ton of energy here. And now, oh, a miscount from me. I should have thrown one in the move, but for some reason, I thought they weren't quite at a move just yet. I'm going to throw 2 in the move, anticipating that they're not going to shield, because if they let it go, the second rollout will not register. In the back, they have Annihilate, and this game is over. Whether it's Play Rough or Shadow Ball, there's nothing they can do here. They end up no shielding. I switch in the Grumpig, and the opponent is going to resign the match. We move to the next game, leading into a Talonflame. Talonflame, bit of a tricky matchup here. Galarian Weezing does have some solid play, like it can fight back, but the lack of fast move pressure does mean that overall Talonflame is going to be favored here. I will make it to another Sludge, really ramping up the pressure on the opponent. This Sludge is going to be shielded. I throw 2, switch, and get a catch onto Lapras. So I get to preserve the Galarian Weezing in case it's more valuable later on, and now we get to check for a potential Psywave resist. Talonflame farms up a ton of energy, and now they're going to switch out into their own Lapras. Unfortunately, with no Skull Bash, I'm forced to just go for Sparkling Aria here. So I'll fire off the Sparkling Aria number 1. I'm farming up a ton of energy, and I'm going to let this go. If they have Skull Bash, they can just knock me out here, and they do. So as it turns out, I should have thrown that move. I shouldn't have relied on the fact that I didn't think they were going to have Skull Bash. That's entirely my fault, because as you're going to see, this Dynamic Punch plus the Psywaves are going to put this Lapras into a really awkward health range that's about the range that a Sparkling Aria would have done. So that's a pretty big error by me, because I'm pretty sure if I land another Sparkling Aria, that move just knocks out. So I am misplaying quite a bit in this battle. I can't Psywave down because of the Skull Bash boost, and all that wasted energy on Lapras is just haunting me in this game. In the back, they have Zygarde, and that's not what I'm hoping to see. I'll fire off the Shadow Ball and then look to switch out here. And now, in comes Weezing. Weezing immediately met with Talonflame. Talonflame banked a ton of energy. I will commit the shield, and then throw 2 and the Sludge. Sludge would easily knock out from this health range, so they will commit the shield, and then they make a brutal misplay. They throw an alignment, and that will actually allow me to outpace now. I'm able to get to the Sludge. Sludge will pick up the KO, but it all comes down to this. I know Zygarde has energy. I'm going to try and go for a Bulldoze catch. I farm up, there's the switch, and unfortunately, as I find out, when I get KO'd here, they're on Earthquake. I could have just stayed in and won, but most of the Zygardes I was seeing were Bulldoze, so I try and catch the Bulldoze, and I end up losing a very winnable game. Galarian Weezing into a non-Shadow Drapion. Non-Shadow Drapion, definitely going to be a bit worse overall in performance, so I would definitely prefer to see this compared to the Shadow, because as you see from the Aqua Tail, it just does not do nearly the damage that the Shadow would. Aqua Tail number 2 is going to land. It looks like I can even live a 3rd Aqua Tail as well, which is very nice. Play Rough connects, and that's some pretty sizable damage. Well, I can survive the 3rd Aqua Tail, but I don't necessarily have to if I catch it onto Lapras. So I get the catch there, and now Mandibuzz is going to hit the field. I am so happy to bait out Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz would be an absolute nightmare for Grumpig to see. Ice Beam is going to connect. Looks like it does not two-shot the Mandibuzz, but it will get the Mandibuzz pretty low. They're actually on Shadow Ball on the Mandibuzz, which is a huge surprise. Now they're going to fire off more energy, and I'm very okay absorbing this move because Lapras is very bulky. Now I get to punish the desync and timers by me getting a catch and send in Weezing. Play Rough lands, we get the Fairy Wind down as well, and that is massive. In comes Drapion. I can't quite get to the Play Rough, so I'm forced to settle for the Sludge. Sludge will leave them on very low HP, but I'm pretty okay just letting this go and trusting in Grumpig to try and take home the win. In comes Grumpig. Oh no, trainer, it's Galarian Weezing, and Grumpig is about to absolutely destroy some hopes and dreams. They have Brutal Swing, but bad news for them, it's not gonna matter. I can no-shield 2 Brutal Swings here, and they're just never going to be able to fast move me down. Watching this back, there was no reason to throw Shadow Ball here. I can pretty safely fire off double resisted dynamic punches because the Psywaves are doing so much anyway. I'm going to be shielding up the Brutal Swing. There's the switch into the Drapion attempting a catch, but Grumpig is going to get the full farm down. I don't even throw the 2 dynamic punches that I have, and that game is over. Oh my goodness, dream lead in this matchup. Weezing into Dragonite, there's the save switch into Ready Steel, and I actually don't have a great response available, so I'm forced to send in Grumpig. Now this is where I learned that Grumpig, believe it or not, loses the Zero Shield to Registeel. And it's not even an IV thing. I have the rank 7 XL Grumpig, but as it turns out, in this matchup, that's kind of irrelevant, as they can survive 2 dynamic punches and the Psy Waves, but unfortunately, I am unable to survive this next move. However, that's honestly not the end of the world considering what the lead was. The lead was Dragonite, so losing Switch is fine as long as I go for an incredibly aggressive farm down with Lapras. Lapras is going to have to shield, but my opponent is now forced to send Dragonite into a Lapras that is completely loaded, because what's their other option? Their other option is having Dragonite on a Fairy type, which is completely unplayable. So they're forced to send Dragonite in here. Dragonite is going to get smacked with an Ice Beam. That forces the first shield. I'm already rapidly approaching even a third Ice Beam now. I fire off Ice Beam number 2. That's going to be shielded up by my opponent. I switch into Weezing just to see what they have. And in the back, they have Gastrodon. Gastrodon, not a great matchup, but in this situation, I'm very happy to have Play Rough, as Play Rough does provide some very solid damage. I'm never going to be shielding here. Whether they full send the Earth Power or bait, either outcome is fine. They end up baiting, and they're actually going to throw again to prevent this Play Rough from going through, but this is still not going to materially affect the outcome of the game, as I get to send in the Lapras, and Lapras is going to go for the Sparkling Aria right before they're able to get their next move. I don't even want to take a Body Slam here. I want to preserve the HP that I have remaining. In comes the Dragonite. They need 2 moves, and they're just not going to get there. So even though Grumpig lost Switch against Registeel in the Zeros, we're still able to take the win, thanks to good energy management. All in all, I did have fun getting to use Grumpig. This was a pretty massive investment. I will say, you definitely do feel the lack of same type attack bonus more so in the Ultra League than in the Great League. I think Grumpig, it's a really nice anti-meta Pokemon for the Ultra League, and if you support it well with strong picks, you're going to have positive results. But I do think that, especially in the Ultra League with everything being as bulky as it is, there can be some certain situations like the Registeel Zeros where you end up losing it despite landing 2 super effective charge attacks, or that endgame versus the Lapras where, granted, I completely threw by not throwing the double sludge, but still, I was expecting that dynamic punch to KO the Lapras, but the bulk levels in Ultra League are so extreme that you do notice that lack of same type attack bonus. So for now, I think it's a very solid anti-meta Pokemon, and specifically, it does a really good job at shutting down a lot of the common Lapras cores, because a lot of people will pair Lapras with Weezing, like I did on this team, for example. They also will pair Lapras with Cobalion, which is a very strong core, as long as the Grumpig doesn't exist. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.